Hey, there we go. What's up, everybody? How are you? And welcome to another episode of Rocket Live. And I am joined today by my awesome guest, Miguel Chen from the band Teenage Bottlerocket and also Blossom Yoga. Welcome, man. Thanks for coming on today.
Hell yeah, dude. Thanks for having. How much should I watch my language actually, right? As we start this?
So that's a great question. So we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. So I guess moderate,
Okay. So hell yeah is probably okay.
Yeah, hell yeah is definitely okay for sure. Yeah, I think we've said a little bit worse on this show. So hell yeah is definitely all right.
All right.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you making time to come on today, and you've got an amazing story, and we've had a chance to talk offline a bunch, and I think what's really cool is that you are definitely living the full-on rock lifestyle and being in making music, making a living off of that. But, you've also got other things going on, too, with your yoga business. So, I love the fact that you're like an all around, like real true, like punk entrepreneur, which I talk a lot about on this show. And like, having that, like, coming from that background of like the punk and hardcore scene. And, you just learn so much that you don't even realize until you're like kind of starting to do stuff, how much of that applies to like, when you want to do things in like real life, like start a business or run a yoga studio and just start other things. So it's really cool, and it's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about. So we were just talking right before we went on. I mean, you're in the band Teenage Bottlerocket. You guys go from like touring basically all over the world, and we were saying this is a big part of your livelihood, and here we are in a pandemic, and talk about like basically like taking your legs out from under you. I mean, it totally sucks, but and I know you've found ways of adapting, but I mean, talk a little bit about that, man. How have you been navigating through this and not being able to play out live and do all that stuff? How you been getting through it?
Yeah, it's such a bizarre thing. Like, so since I was like 13 years old when I started my first band, like I've never gone this length of time without playing a show. And then especially like the last 15 years, like it's been like we said, like a big main part of my livelihood. So whenever the pandemic was kind of like, oh shit, something's really going on, I remember like I was flying to Denver for a show.
Mm-hmm.
And, you were kind of hearing like coronavirus tossed around a little bit. But like there were a couple of people on my flight wearing masks, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, because like if we go to Japan, we see people wearing masks and we know like, oh, they must be sick or something. Like they don't want to get other people sick and whatever. It didn't really cross my mind like what the fuck was or what was about to happen. Right. So wasn't really prepared, I think. And the second we started seeing everyone was canceling shows and postponing tours and stuff, obviously we were like, okay, like we can't play shows if we're going to put anyone at risk. So we were talking with our agent and with promoters and amongst the band and kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? And at first we were like, okay, like 3 months or something.
I think that's what we all thought,
we pushed all our tours back 3 months, and we were supposed to go to Australia and had this big US run lined up. And obviously as the 3 month mark crept up, we were like, okay, that's not happening. So we had to just pull the plug on everything indefinitely and had to really kind of hit the ground running. So outside of the adjustments that I had to make with the band, like, okay, we're shelving all shows and seeing. We also had like, okay, the yoga studio. So we have a studio up in Wyoming still that we run with our partner Jill, and all of a sudden became hey, we have to close the studio. Like, we can't have people in here. And at the time we were also trying to open our first studio in Texas. Had like a soft opening in January, and you know, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, yeah, time to close that too.
We're closing the doors. Like, we literally just opened the doors like, 60, 90 days ago, and now we're closing up shop. It's like, really, is this happening?
Absolutely. And it really became like, okay, how do we adjust? What do we do here? What do we do there? And the studio in Wyoming, kind of became, okay, we're going to live stream classes, and that went okay. Like, our normal clientele just kind of stuck with it, and they were like, yeah, they understood. And the studio here never had a chance to develop a clientele. So that was kind of the launching board for that business to become something completely different than it had originally started as. So we'd been doing these events for many years under this title, Yoga for Punks, and it was just like, if Bottlerocket was playing a music festival, I would just host free classes, and I would print shirts and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden it became, hey, we have this space in Dallas now, but we don't have a business. What do we do? And it became like, hey, well, why don't we focus on, the studio in Wyoming, Blossom Yoga, like, it's its own thing, but we kind of saw like, why don't we think about bringing this Yoga for Punks thing a little more into the light? Because we're like, every yoga studio on earth right now is doing live streaming classes, and
I mean, that's like, I mean, that's the alternative right now, because of the inability to do, like large in-person classes, or, really much one-on-one, because you just don't want you don't want to risk it. You don't want to risk people getting sick and all that. And so virtual has come with its advantages and disadvantages, right? But the advantages is that, for something like what you're doing, you're able to put this content out there and reach an audience, because you've got people who can basically come on from anywhere in the world and participate with you. So it does open the door, for that type of thing as well, which, you can kind of keep things going and offer the classes and so on and so forth.
And it kind of presented this opportunity to like focus on like Yoga for Punks as its own thing, because, Blossom Yoga, we have our students in Wyoming, and, it's not a bunch of people who look like me, there's not a lot of hand tattoos. There's, I'm kind of like, whenever I fly up there to teach a class or whatever, I'm kind of like the token punk guy or whatever,
Right.
But this kind of became an opportunity for, I know there's people who read my books, and I know there's people who attend these Yoga for Punks events, and they're all around the world. So it kind of became this blessing of like, instead of having like a similar clientele, only it's Dallas instead of Wyoming, like this became an opportunity to like, what about my specific students? Like the students who don't want to go to Blossom Yoga, or the students who don't want to go to Core Power Yoga or whatever yoga. Like, what about like the punk yoga people, like the people who pick up my books? And this became an opportunity, like, okay, let's focus on that directly. So that's been a big part of it, and a big like working from home from like our home studio. And that's I think that's kind of been the major. I mean, really the major thing has been like kids, but work wise, kind of all in on Yoga for Punks for a while,
Yeah, and I love that you've been able to sort of take this, like, once again, just how we started talking here about a lot of that, like that punk rock ethic and just doing things on your own. And it's like, here's something you were doing like in between, gigs, like at these festivals and doing it. And now it's sort of taken on this whole new life of its own in a sense of being able to now turn it into this online thing and still reach like your audience, like you're talking about it, like the people who bought the book, the people who, listen to that band, like, punk guy, punk fans and music fans, but like you've given them a way to still like connect with you and utilize that audience. So it's like really leaning on like that personal brand that you created, but to do the things that you love doing, which is yoga, and so I want to talk a bit about that too. So like, reading like your bio and all that, like this isn't like, for everybody watching and listening to this right now, this isn't like something that like, he got in, like Miguel got into like, last year when the pandemic happened. Like this is something that's been a real part of your life for a while, so why don't you talk a bit about that, like, discovering yoga and what it's really meant for you.
Yeah. Growing up, I think my mom was kind of like she was both like the music parent,
right,
and also like the spiritual parent. So my mom was always encouraging me to play guitar. I was in jazz band in like junior high, and she, was really encouraging of like my first punk band and all that. And she was always really pushing, like, if you want to be creative, please do it. There's like no rules, just do it. You want to play music, play music. And
right.
And so she really fostered that in me. At the same time, she was always kind of trying to foster this, like, life is deeper than the surface meanings and this spiritual connection or whatever. But at the time, music's really cool, especially when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Spiritual stuff kind of sounds like hippie woo-woo crap or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciated how nurturing my mom was and encouraging of, yeah, you want to be in a punk band? Yeah, do that. At the same time, I was kind of like, yeah, that other stuff, weird. And,
right.
But, then she passed away when I was quite young. She passed away when I was 16 years old. And that was in a very long, drawn out process over many, many years, but kind of this journey from like, everyone dies and kind of this nihilistic, like, well, I'm just going to live life how I want to live, and just dove completely into the band and just completely into punk rock music. Like, yeah, like I'm not going to get some suit job. Like, what's the point? You die. Like, right. I'm going to hop in this van and travel the world and play music, and that's it. But at the same time, there was also a lot of like, I'm really not dealing with the loss of my mom, and my sister also passed away around the same time. Oh, wasn't dealing with that stuff. Yeah. So I was, lots of like heavy substance abuse and lots of like, anyhow, at some point, the
lots of other ways of dealing with it than actually dealing with it. I mean, it's it's tough, man. And that's it. It's like you find other outlets to sort of kick the can down the road. But ultimately, you got to deal with it somehow. So it sounds like, from where you're going, like this is where, yoga becomes a part of dealing with this loss.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of just hit the point where it was like, man, like my little band from Wyoming did pretty well for, I was looking around, I was like, we're on Fat Records and we're on tour with No Effects. And like, we're in Japan. Like I'm partying for a living. Like, all this stuff I always wanted to do, I'm doing it. So why am I so sad? And that was kind of the kicker, that all of a sudden I had to kind of stop and take a moment. And I kind of like connected with my mom and the things she was trying to pass down to me. And I was just like, mom was really into meditation and breathing, and I'm going to give that a shot and see what happens. And I started just kind of doing it backstage and like, these dirty, like,
it's, I mean, total holes in a wall, but it's like, and then you do that, but somehow you find peace, in like these holes.
it started bringing me a lot of balance, like in between shows. Like you know, I wasn't just living for that hour that I was playing or whatever. I started kind of, and then the secondary component of that, after I kind of started getting my head right, started becoming like, okay, my body hurts, and because I'm more like connected sort of mentally and spiritually, I'm more aware that my body's just falling apart, and I'm way too young, you know, for that. And then that's kind of how yoga is like an extension of my meditation practice became a thing. And then, you know, I started taking teacher trainings. I went to India and like really immersed myself in yogic philosophy. And I met my wife, who's also like a bass player in a punk band and a yoga instructor. And it just sort of became, you know, like it became this entire thing where it's like, yeah, we're punks and we like yoga. And like, of course we got like our fair share of like, yoga's not punk. And I was like, you know, and I'm like, how about I say, like, I kept thinking about Johnny Ramone. Being like, I say what punk is. And if I say driving a Cadillac's punk, like Cadillacs are punk or whatever, you know? And I just had this idea of like, you know, what's more punk than like the guy, like tattoos on my hands, like having a yoga studio and it's called Blossom Yoga, like big middle finger, like, this is, you know, and
absolutely. I mean, that to me is like, but see that it's like you get, you said some really interesting stuff there. And especially like, you know, people being like, oh, well, yoga's not punk. And it's like, well, first of all, it's actually not punk that you even said that, because like, it doesn't, because that's the thing is being punk is like, it's a mindset. It's like, no, doing the things that you want to do and, you know, not giving a crap like what anybody tells you you can't do. And you know what, if you're going to tell me I can't do it, well, guess what? Now I'm going to do even more. Because that's you know, because you're giving me rules and boundaries. You're telling me what I can and can't do. Like, screw you. Like, I am gonna do this, and I love that. It's like that parallel of like, it's the tattoos and the punk rock and the music and all that. And it's like then you open up a yoga studio. It's called Blossom Yoga, but that's the thing is it's like, but this is an all-inclusive thing. Like, punks don't own yoga. Nobody owns yoga. Like, you know, it's yoga's for anybody to attain and do, you know, if you want to do it. So, you know, I think that it's awesome that it's like, it's called Blossom Yoga because everybody's welcome. Like, you don't have to be punk rock to do it. I'm punk rock, but that doesn't mean that, you know, it's just for punks. And then, you know, then you just create this like whole community and this whole like, you know, mindset of well-being and tuning into yourself and finding balance, like you said, which I think is important, which I think is something all of us have dealt with, like, you know, over this last, you know, year, I'll say, you know, between 2020 and now is like, you know, everybody's been thrown off balance one way or the other. You know, this entire situation has affected everybody differently. Nobody's been immune from it. Some, you know, have dealt with things more severe than others, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you're not unaffected by this somehow, some way, you know. And I think balance is a great word to use and key on. And I love how, you know, as you're telling your story here, that this is the thing that, you know, brought you that balance. You know, you found that thing, and you know, some people do have a hard time finding that, you know, but, you know, fortunately you found it. It didn't happen right away. It was an evolution, but it's great that that's something you found and you're bringing it to people, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, I think there's sort of coming from punk rock or coming from that background, like and bringing that into business world, like in punk rock, you know, when you're just some crappy little band, you know, no one wants to book your band. No one wants to release your records, you know, and at some point you learn just, if I want to do this, I have to do it. But on the other hand, you gain this, it kind of like kicks the doors wide open, and all of a sudden you realize, like, if I want to do things, I can do them. Like this whole world of possibilities, like, oh, you want to be in a band, just start a band. You want to have a record, just put out a record. You want to open a yoga studio, like, do it, you know? And I think it's like bringing that mentality into business has been like super, super beneficial because it kind of, on a side note, I did go to business school just coincidentally, but
well, that's good. That's one up on me because I never did business. My business school was like all like trial by fire, man. Like, so at least you had that. Like, I went to school for filmmaking, and then I was like, let me start a business with my best friend, and and that was it. You know, but yeah, but like you're saying, the foundation.
It does. But also like the foundation to just like, you know, and you're lucky you didn't go to business school in a lot of ways because there's kind of like box here and like direct line here and rule or whatever on like how you do or don't do things. But like, think about like, I don't know, think about Jeff Bezos or something, you know, like you think he's abiding by like the business school like rule book? Like, hell no. He just sees things, wants to do them and does them, and you know, and
yeah, I mean, you know,
we won't dive in ethically too much necessarily there, but you know what I'm saying, like the fact is we can live our lives however we really want to, and I think that having that punk rock background lets us learn that at a young age, you know?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. It's something I talk about a lot, and it's like, you know, and like not everybody's had that, you know. It's like, but and it's fine, but you know, sometimes it's hard when you try to explain that to people because it is definitely an experience you have to live through, and like going through that and being part of it and that scene and participating and being in bands, writing music, putting on shows, putting out your own music, selling your own merch. Like, I used to have a distro and I used to sell records at shows. I did all the, like everything you could possibly do. Like I did, you know, and being involved. I don't think I ever published a zine. That's something I didn't. I definitely wrote for like reviews and stuff, but I don't think I ever fully published a zine. But it really like just teaches you exactly what you're just saying. I mean, and you're surrounded by culture of people who are like, yeah, sure. I'll put out your record. Here's my credit card, and and that's it. And like, boom, you've got a record or a CD, and you're selling it at shows for like, you know, $3. I mean, that's like, you think about like the 45s and things like the 7-inches that we would sell at shows. And it's like, why did we sell 7 inches? Well, because it was cheaper than putting out a CD back then. And then it was easier to do because you could get the record pressed, and you could go get copies Xeroxed at Kinko's and like just, you know, have like, you know, putting records together parties and stuff like that with all your friends, and boom, you've got a record. And it's like, that was awesome. And you know, when you're doing it, you don't think about how that translates to running and owning a business later on in life, but it 1000% is like punk rock business school without even realizing you're in punk rock business school, you know. Like, I mean, it's truly amazing. You know, I would love to actually design an entire workshop just called Punk Rock Business School, where you just teach people to do all the shit that we did, like in the punk rock scene, like, and that's it. And this is how you're going to learn how to do business.
Yeah. Like, you want to open a restaurant here, like, here's how you screen print a shirt and press your own buttons. And like, here's how you hand out flyers to everybody at your high school.
Exactly, man. It's great. Oh my God. That would be so funny. It really would be. I love that so much. So there's obviously there's a lot going on with what you're doing. So Yoga for Punks right now. So that's something that, and I'll put this up on the site again too. So real quick, for anybody that's joining us right now in the middle of this, I'm talking with Miguel Chen, and he's the bass player of Teenage Bottlerocket, and we're talking about his band, his music, but we're also mainly focusing on him as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and how he's turned yoga from a passion that he did into an actual business. And we're talking about, you know, living right now during a COVID world, and you know, we're hopefully gonna get through this at some point, but and we're just talking about insight and you know, talking about getting through all this and sharing some ideas and conversations. So if you have a question or you want to contribute, just throw it in the comments and we'll get to it, or flash it up on screen, whatever you want. But I want to thank everybody for watching right now, and thanks everybody who's going to watch the replay. So with the Yoga for Punks, so how does that work right now? Like so I got this one site up now, the miguelchen.com/yoga. But so what, they can go online, they can sign up. Like how is the process working for somebody who would be interested in doing yoga for punks right now?
Yeah, I mean, you can just head more directly. It's just yogaforpunks.com.
Okay.
And we've got a few kind of just online courses. It's all pre-recorded stuff because, again, when I was conceptualizing how do we do yoga for punks more, because we've got Blossom Yoga over there.
Yeah.
How do we sort of this international audience? I had a few things in mind, and one thing was, these people, they're all around the world, all in different time zones. So I thought pre-recorded material was good for that. Anyone can do this whenever works for them. And then this particular course we're kind of pumping right now is like a Yoga for Punks 31-day course. But in that same mindset of, I'm trying to make this a really like accessible thing. Anybody can do it. We made it it's just 10 to 15 minute classes, and you do one every day. And it's meant to be like intentionally a really short, straightforward, practical kind of thing that anyone should be able to do. Because I didn't want this to be just like another like Lululemon pants float, whatever. I was just like, I want guys or girls or whoever who like don't think that yoga's for them to be able to try this and be like, oh, it's not so mystical and weird necessarily. That's just what other people have added to it. Like there's a way to approach this that's really just practical. And so I think I say on the site somewhere there, but it's like, we're not talking about like you have to dye your hair green and listen to the Ramones to do this class, and you also don't have to be able to touch your toes or, own a pair of Lululemon pants. I make fun of Lululemon a lot. I think they kind of deserve it.
I mean, it's gotten to a point of it's reached this like pop culture, like
people don't even wear them to do yoga anymore. Like,
I was just gonna say,
it's just clothes now. Like,
it's like going food shopping clothes.
Like
hanging around the house.
Pants.
Yeah, they're just pants.
But yeah, and so we got kind of that course. Like, anybody, doesn't matter if you've never done yoga before in your life or if you've been practicing for a decade, this course is accessible.
Right. That's the word I was just going to say. You've made it very, very accessible. And I think, and I think that's the thing is like, especially, and like, and everybody's got their own thing. Everybody's got their own style, the way they want to put themselves out there, the way they want to run their own business. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But I think when it comes to something like this, it's like, this is for everybody. Anybody can do this. Anybody can attain this kind of balance. It's just a matter of finding what works for you. So, and I think that by you, not only having Blossom Yoga, but then having this, is a really great thing. And it's tapping into the people that already are your audience, the people that follow you, the people that are a little like on the fence of, is it for me? Is it not for me? And then it's like, oh, well, this sounds fun. This speaks to me. Yoga for punks. I'll give this a try. I mean, it's something I would try. It speaks to me.
Totally. Yeah. And it's funny, like at Blossom, we would always say like yoga for everybody, right. But over time, like, and with enough time in the punk scene, I'm like, just it being called Blossom is going to turn off a certain prospect of people, just like this course being called Yoga for Punks is going to cut off another group of people. So I'm a little bit like, if I really truly do want to make this for everybody, or for at least to everybody who will listen to me for some reason, like, it's nice to have sort of these parallel worlds of like, hey, punks,
Right. Exactly. Come join us. Come join us. Come have fun. Come, attain balance.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the book that you wrote.
Yeah.
So you wrote a book. Talk about that. What's the name of the book? What's it about? Why did you write it?
Yep. So I actually have a couple books out.
Okay. Oh yeah.
The
Cool.
first one I released was called "I Want to Be Well: How a Punk Found Peace and You Can Too," and that was a bit kind of, yoga for punks, sort of before, like,
Right. Before
anyhow,
Yoga for Punks.
it was, it's like spirituality and meditation and yoga, but with like a really straightforward kind of like punk rock attitude, and a little bit like dipping your toes into like Buddhist and yogic and Taoist philosophies, like these Eastern concepts. Again, for punk rockers, for people that like, that just seems like Mars,
Yeah.
So this book was really meant to be just like, here's just a little bit. See if any of it sticks with you. And then the second book, which came out not too long after, was it's called The Death of You. And that one, same sort of like punk rock perspective on meditation and stuff, but a lot more focused on death and loss and and that sort of aspect. And I think that death in particular is such like a source of great pain and suffering for people that kind of becomes the point where a lot of us open up to spirituality and to alternate ideas. So I thought good to have a book that sort of deliberately goes that route, because I've had so many people really close to me pass away. So
yeah, it's something you definitely have experienced, and many people have, and I think that's so I like that you did that, because I think that's really great, because I think oftentimes like things like that happen, and it's so, even though you're not alone, it's so easy to feel alone and lost and just like not you just kind of feel like you're on an island, and like you're not really sure how to deal with these things. And so oftentimes I think being surrounded by other people who've gone through this kind of trauma, or write about these things, I think there's a certain amount of you got to find what works for you. And so I think when you write things, when you put out a book like that, that's something that's a really great, could be the thing that really helps somebody get over that, or at least get themselves on the path of beginning to accept it and deal with those emotions.
Absolutely. And
very solid.
Yeah, man. It was always just like, like these are things that worked for me, kind of mentality and approach. And so I put my first two books out with Wisdom Publications out of Boston, and they're like this great primarily Buddhist publisher, but they do a lot of books by like the Dalai Lama or like Buddhist monks, like these big serious sort of holy figures and teachers and stuff. And so when they approached me about writing books, I was a bit like, are you sure? Like I have things to share, and absolutely. And I want to help people if I think I can help people, but, I don't consider, myself like a holy person or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we're sure. And so then to kind of test it, because like I said, the Dalai Lamas and stuff.
Right.
I was like, okay, I'm going to send you guys like a sample chapter. And then if you still want to do the book, let's do it. And so I was just like, I really need to like make sure they know what they're getting into. So I wrote a chapter, and it was like, I think I talked about crapping my pants and like taco jokes and just like all this dumb stuff and all these like punk references or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was really honest, and I gave it to them, and I expected them to be like, yeah, maybe not. And sure enough, like they did two books. Yeah, they loved it.
That's amazing. That's a great story. I love that, man. And it's like, it's so funny. I love that you just were like, you know what? Fine, I'll give you the sample chapter, and here you go. And it's like no expectations really whatsoever. And and boom, and there it is. Like, yeah, no, we like this, we want more. And it's like, no, seriously, no, but seriously, we want more.
But doesn't that sort of, again, like bringing back this like business and punk rock background, like the idea of not having expectations, I think is kind of instilled in us from punk rockers too. Like we play enough shows where nobody's there and nobody cares. At some point, at some point you're just like, you just expect that. You have zero expectations. So when people do start to care, you're like, oh, like, that's cool. But taking away those expectations kind of, again, gives you freedom to like do whatever you want. You're not going to let anyone down. Everyone's already disappointed. So.
I mean, how many shows did you play, especially, like, and you drive hours? I mean, I remember driving for hours, like 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours to like a gig that like there's 5 people there. Like,
totally.
And you're like, okay, like whatever, like, and you play like you're playing in front of 10,000 kids, and you do it, and it's like, and then it's hilarious, and you're joking. It's like, like that's the expectation. Like, oh, I hope we play in front of more than 5 kids tonight, and maybe we'll sell a couple shirts, so we got enough money to grab some food, and maybe, hopefully, we can get enough gas money to like get to where we're going. And it's like, that's your expectation, and then like all of a sudden you'll play like that one gig, and you're like, where the hell did all these, holy crap, where did all these people come from? And then, and then it's like on, but it's like, there's so much of that. And it's like, you're so right about the expectations of things. Like it's like, whatever, no one cares except for you. And it's because you just want to do it. Like, I want to play the show. I want to play this music and whatever. Yeah, fine. I am going to drive 5 hours to go to this, like, this basement show. And play this, it's or this squat, like, it's like you just go do these things, and then you look back and you're like, man, I can't believe I did that, but God, it was awesome. I wouldn't trade any of that stuff.
Doing things because you want to do them, like that's exactly it. Like that's the approach to business, I think, that we accidentally inherited from our punk rock backgrounds, is like, do things because you actually want to do them, because your level of success has more to do with like, are you happy with what you're doing? Does it feed you on some level, or are you just like trying to get by and pay the bills? Because if you're just trying to get by and pay the bills, like there's a billion of those jobs, and
and you don't have to be in your own business to do that. Like, you can just go get a job, like
totally.
It is definitely something to be said about the perseverance and passion of doing that. And the being involved in that scene, like, just teaches you so much of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's that, and that's honestly, that's something I would love to like work on. I mean, that's something that I've thought about, because I do want to write a book myself, and a lot of it has to do around that, like my punk rock experience and like how that taught me business. And so I have a lot of ideas for something, and I'm going to start doing it finally this year. Is like, I'm committing to doing it. And so I feel like everybody I talk to now, like, now I've committed to doing it, I'm talking to more people like, oh, I got a book, I wrote a book, and I'm working on it. And it sounds like this is the universe telling me that, like,
it's time to write that book.
It's time to write that damn book, man. Like, get it out. So, that's what I'm doing. Is I'm like, I'm not going to ignore the signs. So tell me what's, if you can, I mean, so just switching back, and then I know we're starting to wind this down, but, I just want to bring it back to the music side of things really quick. Like, as a band, I mean, where are things at for you guys? Like, how are you, basically surviving during this as a band? Like, what are you guys working on music? Are you guys somehow trying to figure out how to make the best use of this time while, everybody's locked down, quarantine, not playing shows?
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky in a sense. Our band was like at a level where it's an actual entity. It's like an actual company.
Yeah.
And so when all this happened, we were able to get a little bit of like grants to help everyone like keep eating during all this, because we have like tax returns and stuff for the band, and as like PPP or whatever programs were coming out, we could show like, this is our norm. Right. And it wasn't a ton, but it was enough, like
better than nothing.
And then we we did a record. We wrote and recorded a record. And at this point, we've had so much time that we just keep mixing and editing the record more because we've never had this much time. So I think we're finally at the point where we're a little sick of like mixing and mastering. And now it's just a little bit talking to Fat and trying to figure out when a good time to release this thing is, because we don't want to release a record if we can't hop on the road to support it. So now the challenge for our band is like, how do we sit on this record for X amount of months or however long it is without like accidentally leaking it or
like it's like this thing of like, you want to get this music out, because it's like, it's music. Like you want everybody to hear it. But yeah, I mean, there's the aspect of like, going out, playing, touring, like getting behind it, supporting it. And it's like, you can't really do that. Okay, yeah, there's some live streaming stuff you could do, things like that, but it's not like, consistent, it's like, those are kind of like one-off things where, all right, that was cool. It was fun. Like, but where does it go now? And it just becomes like a sit and wait kind of a thing. Like, you can get ambitious and try to put some gigs out for like, the summer or fall, but I mean, who really knows, right? I see that starting to happen. I see bands, but then I don't, I'm like, hey, yeah, that's awesome, because if you can pull those off, then great. But I feel like as every day that goes by and you keep hearing about what we keep hearing, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be there for more time, like more time.
We have shows booked in Europe for the end of July, and these have been booked like
I mean, these are like the festivals. Like this stuff's booked in way in advance. And
this was, pandemic hit, canceled everything, basically everything we had booked. But then this stuff, we were like, it's a year and a half away, okay, maybe let's not cancel that just yet. Let's just leave it. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, and more, I mean, it's still only January, but more and more, I'm like, Europe in July seems like a stretch. Like,
it's funny, right? I hope it's not either. I agree. I mean, it's funny how you think like that, but I mean, I think it's also realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, and no expectations. No expectations. I mean, you may just have to go back to playing some basement shows for a little. Shows to like 5 kids who are all wearing masks.
There's 5 people allowed in. You all have to wear masks, and tickets are $1,000 each, please. And
exactly. I mean, there is that option. The most expensive basement tour of all time.
We gotta make this viable or whatever.
Absolutely. Well, that's cool, man. I'm glad to hear that you guys, have got some new music coming out, which, I can definitely tell you, I'm looking forward to hearing when it's ready to go. And I know,
I think it's a great record, man. Yeah. Like Fat Mike told us it's our best record, and I obviously respect his opinion quite a bit.
He's been around. He's been around a little bit. He's done a couple things,
Totally. So it's just a little bit, the weight and the uncertainty of when is this going to come out kills me, because I really want to share it with everybody. Yeah. Really proud of it. Who knows?
Hey, listen, you can only do the best you can do. That's it. And, the fact that you guys even were able to, the positives here is that you guys were able to create new music. You got it. And now it's just a matter of, figuring out how and when to release it. So that's kind of a good problem. It's a problem, but it's a good problem to have, because at least you guys were able to remain creative and still make music together, which is awesome. So it'll be something that I'm sure everybody will welcome with open arms when it gets released, because there's nothing like hearing new music, especially when you're sort of trapped in your bubbles. It's like, it gives you something to look forward to. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on and talking and sharing. And Harry, who's this?
This is Stuffing.
Nice. I love that name. Stuffing. How old is Stuffing?
He's like 6 6 or 7. He's a good boy.
He looks like a good boy. That's awesome. Yeah, my dog Milo, he's downstairs. He doesn't come up here when I'm on. He just doesn't even want to be bothered coming up here. So, well, cool, man. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on and spending time and talking with us today about everything, sharing all this information. And I hope everybody who's out there watching live will watch the replay and will listen on the audio podcast. Also find value in Miguel's story and sharing everything with us, from the music, from yoga to everything that's gone on in his life. So once again, where can people sign up for Yoga for Punks?
Yeah. yogaforpunks.com. If you want to check out my books or whatever, miguelchen.com. If you want to check out the band, teenagebottlerocket.com.
Awesome. And where else if people want to connect with you directly, website or, wherever?
Yeah, miguelchen.com. It's got all you should need, I think.
Right on, man. Well, once again, thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching another episode of Rocket Live. Really appreciate all of you. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a favor and make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell, so that way you get notified every time I put a new video out or I go live. It really helps. Also, if you could reshare these episodes, that helps too. Make sure you tag my guests who are in these shows as well, because it helps us all out, man. We're just trying to share information and build community here, and we really appreciate any help we can all get. So thank you guys so much. So with that, I will see you guys next Tuesday for another episode of Rocket Live. And remember, be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it, man.
Cheers, man.